And now the next part of the story, when Jesus is leaving, we'll get into a bit of the detail here, but I'll read it. It says, as they were going out, these are the soldiers with Yeshua, Jesus. They met a man from Cyrene. His name is Simon or Simon. It's written as Cyrene, but the Greek is Koranias. Can you try that? Say that? Koranias. And his name was Simon or Simon. And they forced him to carry the cross. Then they came to the place. That verse we want to talk about just for a little bit. These are fascinating studies, and it's pretty amazing how the writers bring in these particular characters. There's reasons for it. They wrote it in there. And I'd like to see if I can take a stab at what some of it means. Jesus actually was put, the cross was on him. Most people believe that he only had the cross beam, like this part that goes across, because that could be as weighty, as heavy as, I've read 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 70 to 75, 70 to 90 pounds, even more, 120 pounds. That's huge. That's heavy. And remember what Jesus just went through. I mean, he's pretty wiped out. He's hungry, hasn't eaten all night, all day. He maybe got water here and there. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. And remember, he already sweat great drops of blood in the garden the night before. He's exhausted. And yet he went through all this torture, this beating. He lost a lot of blood. Ugh, sorry. Anyway, so he's really wiped out. And yet they carry this beam. Usually they wrap rope around him, and they have to carry it. It's just an object of scorn and ridicule and insulting, and also to give an example of not being a criminal. And dying on a cross is the lowest class person that you can be in, and the lowest criminal type person you can be. Roman citizens were hardly ever put on a cross. They just weren't allowed to do it. Now, there were occasions where the only person in the only way that could die on a cross, if they're a Roman citizen, like they're part of Rome, the only person who could say yes to that and agree to it is Tiberius or any of the Caesars. That's the only way they could die. So this is a lowest class slave type, criminal, the worst criminal that you can be, were the ones who died on crosses. So now there's a lot of people on both sides who believe that he really could have carried the whole cross. It doesn't seem to be the usual, but it seems to be through different discoveries like the Shroud of Turin and things like that. We're not going to get into it. And if that's for real, it seems to be that that there were marks on that demonstrated like 9 different marks on his backside of his that could have been the actual thing that covered Jesus' body, by the way. They found that. But anyway, that there's different marks that suggest that there was a whole cross on him, that he may have carried the whole thing. Unusual. Crosses weighed about over 300 pounds, the total thing. But typically what they did is they took the beam, the cross beam. You have a cross like this. Well, let me show it this way. You have a cross like this. This is a cross beam, and this is the style, is what they call it, S-T-I-L-E. This is the trunk, which means trunk or tree. Let's see, what else is it? Log. Those are the 3 terms that means right here. So did he carry it like the whole thing on his back? Or usually they carried this, and they had to carry it up. And they usually put this as a permanent type thing in the ground. So there's stakes, posts up there wherever they're going to be crucified. And they would take this thing and nail the person on it or tie him with ropes. And then they would take that off and leave this like a stump in the ground. That was constantly there. But it's kind of interesting stuff, but it's not the important thing here. But I like to know as many details as I can. And the Bible does give some of these details. As they were going out, and out means this, if he left from the Herod's towers, or the old David's towers, it's also called, then he would have probably gone north and northeast and probably entered in this area, or maybe this area or something where he was going to die on the cross. So it's possible that he took a route that went something like this, if you can see that. And it had to be on the outside. Not only the Jews were taught that biblically in Leviticus and other places, whenever somebody's going to be like executed, like punished for their crimes, they went outside of the city for various reasons. One, it's an unclean ceremonial death here, and we want it outside. The Romans also agreed with this too, by the way. The Romans did not have executions inside a city, so they brought him outside. So he went, I don't know, it could have been 1,000 feet, maybe longer. But he went out there, he walked this way. Now, the traditional side is that he went what's called Via Dolorosa, which means sorrow, a path of sorrow here, which definitely is a path of sorrow. But it tends to be probably this way and somewhere here. Maybe he died on a cross. But the walk was from here out that way. He probably went out the gate, what was that called? I might have to look at that. I know that gate. I can't think of it at the moment. But he went out one of the gates of the 20 or so gates of the walls of Jerusalem. As they were going out, they met a man from, we'll say Cyrene to make it easy, named Simon or Simon. And this Simon, there's 9 Simons in the Bible. I could probably name them all. It's pretty interesting. And it's, you know, like very popular. It's actually the most popular name among Jewish people. So it's possible, and strongly possible, that he was a Jew. But the thing is, he didn't live in Jerusalem. He came from Cyrene. Now, where's Cyrene? Well, I have a map here that I tried to draw of where Cyrene is probably, we could pronounce it that way. Can you see it? This is Africa right here, and this is Egypt, and this is Israel, and this is Jerusalem. This is where Jesus is. Now, this man came 1,145.6 miles all the way through here to get to Jerusalem. And it seems as if he was a Jewish person, or he could have been like a proselyted Jew, like a person who became Jewish. Not sure. It could have been, maybe he wasn't. There's no definite about that. But it also seems, which is really cool, that he became a Christian maybe because of this, or because of finding out about this man that he helped. We'll tell how he helped more in detail in a second. He helped carry that crossbeam. He actually carried it for him part of the way. But anyway, so Simon came over there. It's a Jewish feast. It's a Jewish festival. It seems as though Jesus... oh, by the way, these other names, I wanted to mention this. Cyrene is actually in Libya, and it's from the name Cyrenaica, or, you know, this part, which is still there. It's on the eastern part of Libya, and that's where this name came from. But I think it was named after a false god. But anyway, he came all the way here because it was the festival time, and pilgrims, they call them, from all over the world came to worship at that time. Now, it says that he came from the country, or field type thing. He wasn't coming in from work. That's like 9 o'clock in the morning maybe, or 10 or something. So he was, I think as Jesus left this, he was coming from over here, coming from over this way, coming in here and going into or towards the Jerusalem there, and he came this way. He could have come from this way, but it seems that he came from this way, and he met him there. And the Romans, what it says, the Roman soldiers compelled or made him, forced him to carry a cross. Do you remember I said way back, I don't know if you can remember this, in Matthew chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, where I mentioned that Roman soldiers would take Jewish people and others, and they'll force them to carry something for a mile. And and Jesus said, go the extra mile. Well, this is what they did. They grabbed him. Now, some suggestions are that he already loved Jesus and he did it, and they saw. No, I don't think so. I think they just forced him to do it. Maybe because they could tell he was a foreigner. He was from outside. They didn't want the Jerusalem people to get upset, and also Well, who knows why? It's just a lot of guessing that could go on here. But the fact is, this guy had the privilege of carrying the cross of Jesus. Now, by the way, if he's a Jew, he's getting blood over him, and now he's unclean ceremonially. It's like, oh, are you kidding? But I don't know. He may have been willing, may not have been willing. I'm not willing to do it, but they made him do it. And then it's possible that as he went along and he started finding out who he was, or maybe he's heard about him, who knows, then it's possible that he got saved, because later his sons, Alexander and also Rufus, is mentioned in the book of Acts and also Romans. Rufus is mentioned in Romans chapter 16, a Pauline letter. It was a Paul's letter to the Roman there, and Rufus is named as a Christian, as a disciple. And that is the son of Cyrene's guy, which is Simon. All this, can be confusing. Because Mark said it. It said that he's the father of Alexander and Rufus, which means the people Mark is writing to, or that Peter is telling Mark to write to and all, he was writing as a secretary, sort of, of Peter. They knew those guys, and they knew that he was, in Mark's gospel, it mentions that these are obviously Christians in the community of Christians, and they were known among the Christians. So, it's kind of very intriguing. That's why it's probably put in here. For one, there are different reasons, but one of the reasons is because Matthew knew that this guy probably became a Christian, and his sons became Christians, and yeah, it's very cool. I think it's awesome. And imagine having the privilege of helping Jesus, carry that beam, heavy beam, strong. But Jesus, why didn't he carry it? Because he couldn't under the weight. After a while, his physical body just gave out. And a lot of times they will whip them as they're going along, but I don't know that they did with him, and they really gave him a ridiculous, really horrible, torturing treatment, which is what I said in the last video pretty graphically. Well, somewhat. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene called Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. And then they came to a place called, and then we'll get into the next thing. We'll get into the next story in a little bit. So that kind of covers this guy. A very interesting story. This guy came from that area all the way over and carried the cross. Now, there is a possible tradition that he was very beautifully a black person. Who knows? Because Africa, a lot of, not all, but a lot of blacks were from there. And that's pretty interesting if that's truth. But there's nothing in history that just says that, but I don't know. I don't know. There you go. I think that covered a lot, and we're coming into a really time here, really tough time, and yet a wonderful, glorious time that we're going to share on what it was like somewhat for him to go through this, the ugly part of it, the bad, the sad part, but also on the flip side of it, what he did for us on the cross is everything. It's the core. It's the heart of the gospel. It's the heart of the good news of Jesus Christ and what he did for us. So I hope that's interesting to you. I think we will finish there. All right, thanks for listening. God bless you.